Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Around the Emirates with Sarah. I'm here with Deena. Hello, Deena.
Hi, Sarah. How's it going?
It's going great. And I actually think you know exactly what's going on in my brain right now because Deena is an Emirati mindset coach with a lot to talk about. Please tell me your story, Deena.
Well, Sarah, I think in terms of stories, I like to take a step back and look at it in terms of why I do what I do, and we will get to that. And then to take a step further and navigate in terms of a zone of genius. So, why I do what I do and why me? Okay, and we will get to that point. So I'm Emirati. I studied psychology and I developed my own research methodology towards becoming the best you that you could be. It's called The Guide to Hacking Your Psyche. It's a 3-part series and it's based on a cyber-humanistic analogy. Okay, so you have to imagine yourself as a computer. Your mind is software, your body is hardware, and your consciousness is electricity. In order for you to proceed next, the first thing you need to do is address the three together. You need to see if there's any form of disconnectivity. Once that is addressed, in order for you to hack your psyche, you have to be able to understand your psyche. And think of it in this way: you think in code, and you can't edit a code that you can't read. So it's a 3-part series, and the first part is the essentials. It's all about being able to read and troubleshoot your own code and for you to understand who you are, like genuinely who you are, because all the roads navigate from you and everything should go back to you. Everything should revolve back to you. So that's the first part. The second part is the dark series. This is where the hacking begins, or I would say the editing. And it's the dark because you have to face the darkness within you. And there is a construct that there's a darkness that genuinely belongs to you, your neuroticism, your natural dark tendencies, which aren't so bad because they come into use when you need them to come into use. But then there's also the darkness that doesn't belong to you. And I call those your demons. So when you say you're fighting your demons, it's
Sounds
like,
about
I'm
right.
friends with my demons. It's like, it's not your inherent darkness. It's the darkness that has been programmed within you that you need to edit out. And then you also want to be able to utilize your darkness for your greater good. And that is the goal. There's a reason why you have to be angry sometimes and you have to be upset sometimes and you have to stand your ground. And a big component of that is protecting and defending yourself. There's a lot of warfare involved in it. So then there is the light, and it's the third part, and it's the light at the end of the tunnel. And at this point, you are running your code and you're automating your life. Okay, you are embodying the light. So you know yourself from the essentials. You've battled your demons, you've seen your darkness, you utilize it, and now it's time to embody the light. And this is all about the future, looking forward, and basically living your life in alignment with your true self. Whether it's securing the relationship between your mind and your body and your consciousness and being able to have that harmonious feel of like, what am I feeling? What does my body need? How are my energy levels? Am I okay? Am I not okay? What's happening? To be able to communicate with yourself and then set up systems. So, for example, if you struggle with self-love, where there is hate, there is love. And how do you go about it? And how do you tap into that feeling of actually loving yourself, of actually living a fulfilled life? Because at the end of the day, all of these things that we crave in terms of the future and what we want from the future are feelings that we already have within us. You have that feeling of relief. You have
Right.
that feeling of contentment. You have that feeling of feeling like you're enough. But what's stopping you?
I see.
And that's where the mindset comes in. How are you programming yourself? And also there's a big component of it of like, the dark is definitely your subconscious and working with your subconscious, and then the light is like literally taking that subconscious work, raising it up to the conscious in the dark, and then taking in the light, taking that conscious work of like, you change things and putting it in the subconscious, so it becomes part of your daily system. whether it's implementing systems in your day-to-day life, whether it's hanging stuff, changing your routine, changing whom you surround yourself with, all these things that keep you on track because you navigate the majority of your life with your subconscious. So unless you're tapping into it and working with it, you're going to feel like you're just on this hamster wheel that keeps going and going over and over again.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I think, firstly, thank you for that kind of detailed breakdown of how it works. It's really interesting to see a discussion around your mindset that comes in the form of as if you're a computer or like machine programming. I've never heard someone analyze it that way. So it's not just about kind of how you feel, but it's programming how you feel. It's trying to figure out, okay, I feel this way. How can I tap into what already exists in my system, in my brain, what I feel to change that? And like you said, taking it from, the hacking and, the dark web or the dark parts, so to speak, and converting that into, the light at the end of the tunnel, just like you're saying. So I have quite a few questions here for you. My first question is just why? Where did all of this come from? What made you want to look at this?
So the answer to that, and that's something that I continuously go back to on a daily basis, is impact. It's positive impact, and it's positive impact on a grand scale. And I wanted to create something that people can do and help themselves with it through, because like once you're hacked, you're good. And like in the last session, it's called Grounding 101, and it's about surviving the worst day of your life. So the point of this is for you to go through it and go through it once and be good and be able to have those tools to go like, okay, there's something wrong with the way I'm thinking. Where is it? Where did it come from? And how can I adjust it? And I just want it to be streamlined. I want it to be organized. I want it to be accessible. So that is one of the reasons why, but like we go back, it's positive impact on a grand scale.
Very interesting. It sounds like a very this is what you're giving. This is what you're trying to influence in your community. So this isn't something where you say, oh, this happened to me, I want to share it with you. I like the way that you're phrasing it as a positive impact of like, this is something that will help people in a positive way. This is something that you want people, like you said, to take it day to day into their routines and think, okay, how can I make this work for me? I'm just curious, did you ever grow up with like a specific liking for computer technology or anything like that? I'm just wondering.
Human behavior is what I've always been obsessed with. It is human behavior, why we do what we do, human potential, untapped human potential. In terms of the technological analysis or analogy, it's more along the lines of technology has become a part of our lives. We understand technology. We are in sync with technology. It's our phones are extensions of ourselves. So the best way for you to understand anything is through an analogy. And what better analogy than computers? Because if you look at it and you look at us and you're like, we're not that different. Yes, we are humans. At the end of the day, we are superior for now. But
for now.
For now. But
but that's good.
But I always argue that the biggest threat with AI are humans using AI, not AI itself. So
well, it's interesting how you package it. Like the fact that you just said like our phones are extensions of ourselves. So you don't actually go a full day without touching your phone. Like even something as small as going to the supermarket, you need your phone just for your al-husn, for example. Like there's no situation in which you don't have your phone with you, even if it's like not so much like on loud, you're still near you. It's still something that has everything in it. So I think that the fact that you're using computer programming, machine learning, AI as like the analogy to explain this kind of technique of better understanding your psyche, I think is very cool. What would you say has been the biggest challenge of you kind of taking all of this on, and how did you overcome it?
The biggest challenge has been having more faith in the unknown than having faith in the known.
Explain.
It's been because, right, when you have this concept, you have this idea in your mind, and you're like, I am going to turn this into humanity. I'm going to turn this into reality. I'm going to transform this into something that people can use. While you're going through the process, and while I was going through the process, it was a long process. It took me years to develop this. This didn't happen overnight, and and it was difficult because on days where I'd wake up and I'd question, like, why am I doing what I'm doing? And I don't have the results in front of me. Yes, I'm working with people one on one, and that definitely helped me keep going, because I see them and I see the difference between, what one session, two sessions makes in their quality of life and their livelihood. And that kept me going to a certain degree. But you take a step back and you're like, why have I dedicated a year of my life into this? Why have I dedicated 2 years of my life in this? And you're like, no, but it's for a greater purpose. And that's unknown. You don't see it, you don't touch it, you don't feel it. It's faith. And I think that was definitely the biggest struggle, is just going like, no, I see it. And even if you don't see it around me, I still see it.
I see. That's a very interesting trust, a sense of trust that you're developing without actually having. I mean, you have the basis of, like the small day-to-day progress, but it's a long-term progress that you're just hoping will get you to where you want to be with this whole process. So it's interesting how your obstacle is something that it's not like a tangible in front of you obstacle. It's like, hopefully this takes me to where I want to be. But you do bring an interesting point into the conversation here. So you mentioned how you have, your clients that you support with through this technique. So what would a typical first session with you and your client look like?
The first session is always the essentials. Know yourself, know thyself. That is the first one. Before I work with anyone, they have to go through with that, because if we don't know who you are, what are we working with? What are we working with? So we have a comprehensive analysis of your life. We evaluate your mind, body, consciousness relationship. We break down your personality. We do an order and chaos analysis. We just sort of highlight, hey, what's going well for you and what's not, and who are you?
Interesting. What's not going well for you? Who are you? It's like it sounds like the most basic questions, but in reality, it's really difficult to answer some of those if you don't actually have a strong grasp of your mentality. Like, I could say, yeah, hi, my name is Sarah, like I'm Egyptian, whatever. But if you actually like, okay, who are you? Like, what are 3 words that you use to define yourself? What is your biggest weakness? Like, it's hard to be like, oh, my weakness is this, my strength is that. Like, it's not the easiest question unless you like really sit there and think about it and pick apart at those feelings. So it's interesting. But okay, that's interesting. So in any of these kind of sessions or experiences that you've gone through, you said it's been a year, right? That you've been doing this?
Yes.
Okay. What would you say has been like the weirdest or craziest or funniest thing that might have happened to you?
That's a really good question. I think it's when I anticipate that there is more help needed and there is less help needed. It's like working with just having one session or one conversation that becomes transformational. And I think no matter how often this happens, it will always blow my mind. How something like an hour of your life could transform things. That to me is, till today, when I see it, I'm like,
what's going on?
It really hits. And it's, as I said, it's definitely something that keeps me going. In terms of my methodology, working with it, I'm working with it on a collective basis in the upcoming few months. So right now, the sessions have been private, they've been exclusive, it's been very limited, as I've been dedicating my time to creating it on a large scale.
I see. Okay. And I know that you've mentioned an NFT and something about a metaverse. So tell me about that.
Yes. So again, going back to the large scale positive impact, why? So this is just the beginning of it. The way I want to integrate it, I am definitely a believer in Web3, in blockchain, crypto, the metaverse. I believe in it. I genuinely do, especially in terms of not what we see right now, what we are going to witness 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. So like this is something that, like, you're a millennial, I'm a millennial. Gen Z is starting to get into it. They're starting to dabble a bit more with the metaverse. But in terms of the generation after that, Generation Alpha, this is going to be their life. This is going to be their bread and butter. And if you look at the scales and if you look at the way social media has developed, so if you look at, Web 2 and like Instagram and TikTok, yes, they have brought benefits, but you've seen the studies. They basically say, there are effects on your mental health, body dysmorphia, disconnectivity, that we already see that there are negative mental health repercussions. Who's going to say that the metaverse isn't going to happen? You're literally embodying a different persona.
Yeah.
You could see how that could seriously shake someone or destabilize someone. Yes, it's prosperous and it's amazing. And like, we're living in this reality where there's an augmented reality and a virtual reality. But when you take a step back and you look at the human aspect of it, you're like, what's going to happen to us? And so in terms of that large scale, that's how I'm thinking of it. And I really wanted to bring that into it, bring my guide into it. So the first step is an NFT pass. So an NFT does not necessarily have to be a piece of art. What it could have is a form of utility value. So you would purchase it. It's forever yours. It's engraved in your blockchain. It's in your wallet. And once you have it, you have access. And once you have access to the lectures. You have access to a Discord server, which is a platform where you can just go on. And there are certain rooms. Some of the rooms are locked. Some of the rooms are unlocked. So if you have access to it, you have access to these rooms. And while you're in them, you can socialize with those that are going through what you're going through. That is the first phase. The second phase is to have it turned into an educational, immersive space. So I'm going to be bringing in other mental health professionals that will be creating workshops, someone that specializes in, let's say, PTSD, someone that specializes in borderline, and then be able to open the spaces for them and have them be supervised to make sure that this isn't a free-for-all. You're talking about people's health, and that's why it's a gradual process towards that. Doing that, opening these spaces and then opening them up some more, and then ideally by the end of it reach to a point where right now we're at the metaverse. You can go in, you can get assessed, you're diverted to whomever you need to work with. There's going to be an algorithm that triages you, and then you also have your own private space where you could, be with people that are going through what you're going through. And at the end of the day, it still has that same concept of it's supervised and it's safe and it's healthy, and you're there for one another to support one another for a long time.
It's interesting how you're taking the concept of, like you said, like NFTs and the metaverse, like you're adapting that trend and like that next step for our generation into something that will actually have a really good influence in our lives. So everything you just mentioned, 100%, like social media does have its pros and cons, and people are like now understanding the value of blockchain and the value of having these different types of tools available for us now. So the fact that you're taking that and turning it into something that takes the good out of everything, basically. So it's the fact that we know that this is here to stay. This type of technology is not going anywhere. So it's the fact that you're so forward thinking and your technique is that that this is something that you need to like kind of get ahead of the curve. But at the same time, like you said, it's in a safety zone. Like you're not doing something that might have like disadvantages to it. That this is something that with your, like you said, working with medical experts and working to make sure that the setup for it still makes people feel safe and secure. Like the fact that your brain got to that level of like, this is how it's going to look, and visualizing it, I think it's incredible that you've been able to do that in such a short span of time. Like this isn't something that you've been studying for 5, 6, 7 years. This is something that you has been driven by your own passion for for making a positive impact, and B, getting that technological element, woven into it. So I find it fascinating, and I would definitely love to, hear more about this as you progress. But did you have any kind of word of advice for the listeners, or any kind of message you'd like to leave with them after this episode?
So in terms of what I want people to go home with this, and I want them to go home with, choose you. Your happiness matters. When you are happy, when you are good, things will follow. And even when you're not okay, it's okay to not be okay, and see it for what it is and accept it for what it is. But it doesn't mean that you don't want to change it. You can accept something and still want to change it at the same time. That exists. So concentrate on you. If when you're good, everything else will fall into place, and you are the priority. So, and I always tell people, like, really treat yourself, take a moment and speak to you, see what's up, tap in. And I wish you absolutely nothing but the best.
That is so sweet. I love that. Speak to you, speak to yourself, say, hey, what's up? What's going on? I love that. The fact that it's like, what I love about what you're saying is that it's the smallest changes, like the smallest steps. It's not something that's like, oh, go do like a yoga retreat and come back. It's not something that requires like a large budget of like, go on like shopping spree. It's something as simple as take a minute to just understand yourself better. And because we change so much through our phases in life, whether it's through education, whether it's relationships, whether it's jobs, we forget to slow down and just say, how am I feeling today? What do I want to achieve today? So having said that, I think that you've inspired me to want to get to know myself better even. I really appreciate the time that you've taken to explain your process. I'm definitely going to be keeping track of kind of where you're going, and would love to do a follow-up interview soon once, you've set this all up, and seeing how this goes. Might meet you in the metaverse.
In a nice, healthy space.
That's what we like to hear. Well, is there anywhere that the listeners can go to set up a session with you or be in touch with you?
You can go on my website. It's deenaal.com, and you'll find information. deenaal.com/the guide is the methodology in and of itself. And the last thing I want to add, when you speak to yourself with kindness. Like love and kindness. I like you. I love you. How are you? What do you
How's it going?
How's it going? Is there anything missing? Anything that I can do for you? Anything that I can do to make you feel better, happier? That conversation.
Well, that sounds like 5-star service to yourself. That's amazing. But yeah, no, that sounds great. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll speak to you soon.
Much love. Bye.
Bye.